Hi there, this is Steve Broccolo from the Olacorp channel. This video will teach you with the written directions how to prepare a offline USB for installing Debian 10. Now, not the USB ISO itself. I'm assuming you know how to do that. If you don't know how to do that, this is the wrong thing for you to be trying. Debian 10 is not difficult to install, but it takes someone who's familiar with Linux to configure all the little pieces it takes to look something like you see on my screen. I'm not going to go over Conky and these instructions. I'll do a separate video on that, but everything else, all the applications that are installed, the ability to do auto login, use an external Wi-Fi adapter, all that is going to be in part 2, my instructions. This gets you some of the instructions offline, well, most of them I should say, onto a USB so that you can read them when you first boot up Debian, just in case you're not connected to the internet. But you read it ahead of time and you follow the directions properly, and 99.99% of the time you'll get a Wi-Fi adapter, which is not normally true with Debian. So here's a way to do that. So let's jump into the directions for this. Now, one of the first things you need to do is copy these directions onto a USB so that, along with the next directions, so that you can read them offline and refer to them. So where do you get these? And I would say the easiest place to go is going to be this. Linux Desktop Help for Beginners. I will try to put these in the description or in the comments, but the second one especially is quite long, very long. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to, if it'll let me put something that long in there. But if you come to this site, this Facebook group, Linux Desktop Help for Beginners, and you go to More, down here under Files, there are the two files and you can download them from here. Okay? Now let's go back to this. Let's start with what ISO this and my directions, what I used. You can use other ISOs or desktop environments other than XFCE and all that, but my directions are not, I can't guarantee they're going to match correctly in all cases. But if you know how to, if you're fairly familiar with Linux, you should be able to see what I'm doing and make a modification so that it fits whatever DE and ISO you're using. But using the one I got here is going to give you the most straightforward approach. So we're going to use this one, XFCE plus non-free ISO. If you click on this, you'll see the packages that are included in it. I'm going to scroll way down just to show you what a crazy long list of pre-installed packages it comes with. Now, this one, maybe not necessary, but I'll show you with this one so I don't have to show you with all the other ones. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to each of these websites and you're going to save page as. and I'm going to put it here. As you see, it's already there, but we'll save it. It should ask me if I want to replace it. I said yes. And it's complete. Okay, now in here you'll see a folder for the website and an HTML. You're going to double click on the HTML. It uses the folder in order to emulate the next the page in offline. And I'm pulling this up in offline. Okay, this one here, Debian Handbook Installation Steps, this one here is what I just brought up. I already had it saved. I don't have to show you again. Oh, and here I am shutting things down that I don't mean to shut. Okay, this is going to give you a step-by-step install using the graphical install. The live ISOs will come with a Calamares, if that's how you say it, installer, but unlike the Linux graphical installer, it won't search out the firmware, at least not that I saw, and load the Wi-Fi firmware. This will. And I'll show you what you need to do that. But anyways, you're going to go through, this is a very straightforward installation procedure. You know, nothing you haven't seen before. Again, I'm assuming you've installed Linux before. So none of this is really any different. Detecting the network hardware. This is where, prior to you get to the point, in fact, just as you do, click on graphical installer, stick the USB in, the second USB with the firmware and these directions on it probably. And at the point detecting hardware, if it finds the firmware in that list, and man, I've done this on a few different machines, it finds them every time. Mostly I have Intel though. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have a Broadcom that I've tested it on. No, I don't have one. I've tried an external to see if it spotted the RA link, and it did, but there's a problem with external, which I cover in the full directions, which I don't think their installer solved the problem. And so everything you're going to go through, it says do not improvise, but you're going to put in your system name and you're going to hit enter on domain. You're not going to bother entering that. That's the only thing you might see different than you're used to seeing in other installations. So it's going to come through blah blah. Everything is going to be things you're used to seeing. How you set it up, again, you've done this, or this is not for you. Guide it, use entire disk. I don't mess with the encryption, but you can certainly do that if you want. I like the manual, and oftentimes I use gparted from the live session to pre-configure before going into the install. And guided partitioning, if you go guided, definitely go with a separate home partition. It really will make your life easier if you have problems later on. Choosing a file system, ext4. I wouldn't bother with any of the others. I've tried BTRFS and it's got a few bugs in it, especially when it comes to booting with dual booting. And I'll get to that later. And then it's going to do its thing. It's going to do some more of its thing, installing the base system. Okay, here, this doesn't show it asking, but before it gets to this screen, it's going to ask if you want to use a network mirror. If you don't want to be connected to the network while this is happening, to get some of the updates, say no, or use a network mirror if you're connected to the network. Selecting a Debian mirror, blah blah blah. Selecting packages for installation. Again, this is going to be pretty much bypassed. I don't remember if there was a specific print server or standard, or if just those were already included, because this one that I'm using, XFCE. The grub loader, I'm going to talk about dual booting with Debian, but it goes ahead and does the grub loader. I'm going to go to my little warning, which I somehow closed. Sorry. Okay. Go down here at the bottom, the warning. I may have to reword this. I said if you install Debian on a system with another Linux, it will only dual boot other Debian-based distros, and it will rewrite the swap. That last part is correct. Whether it will only work with other Debian-based distros, I may have run into a lot of problem with testing with Arch and Fedora, because they kind of push the BTRFS file system, and that may be the problem that I was having, that there's a bug with that particular file system. So I say, yeah, you're not going to be able to do it with Arch or Fedora, but I need to do further testing. Now, what is true is the first time booting the other distro will take 2+ minutes, because Debian reformats the swap Linux partition and therefore changes its UUID. So you have to go into your other system's etc/fs tab to excuse me while I move things around to make it easier to read for me. So anyways, that's the installation guide. You're going to go through here, auto login. These commands are mostly in the long installation, customization document. But this one, this firmware, you're going to need to want to get that. And I'll show you what you need to do with that. This is an important step because I already have this page saved offline. You should probably do that too in case you need it for reference and read through it. Okay, so you want to get here to where you download the firmware archive. So you're going to click on that. We're using Buster. We're on 10.9. Assuming you're on Linux, you want to download this tar.gz. If you're on Windows gathering stuff, you can do the firmware.zip. Okay, so we're going to open that. I'm going to redo it even though it's already there. You're going to put it in a folder, uppercase firmware. I forget where I read that. It had to be all uppercase, and I've been doing it that way ever since. And it works. So before you call me a liar, if you want to try something different, have at it. But this works for me. As you see, it's already there. Okay, so no need to prove how to download. What am I doing? Okay, so you've got to download it. It's here. Extract here. You want to extract it into that firmware subdirectory. If you accidentally put it somewhere else, just copy and move the files over into the firmware. Make sure it's in that firmware subdirectory. It's not very big. It's an 80 meg file. What it extracts, not very big, but very important. Save to use extract to firmware. Save this file and the other file. Yep. So I'm back. Say hi. I'm going to show you what my system looks like real quick before I say goodbye. This is about a 11, 12-year-old computer or something like that, the T520. ThinkPad. I'm a big fan of these. Very Linux friendly. As you see, I'm using 5.10. It comes with 4.19, and my directions will show if you want to go up to 5.10. I'm not sure what they might have 5.9 in the back ports. That's what the BPO stands for. But this is running, as you see, second generation. As you saw, it was pretty quick. No stutters, even with a screen capture program laying on top of it. It was all pretty quick. Is the internet Wi-Fi that I'm using. IWL Wi-Fi is the Intel driver, but it'll do whatever you want. Anyways, I'm going to say goodbye, and y'all have a good time. Shut everything down and wave so long. Enjoy.